Hi friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm so excited to be showing you Cracked Polish's Italy collection. So as you can see, this is another massive 8-piece collection and it is this beautiful rustic lineup of shades that is getting me in the mood for fall. I'm so excited to talk some more about these. Obviously I have a ton of comparisons for them as well, but I will save more of my thoughts for the end. For now, let's get into the swatches. Actually, first I have to start with Cracked Polish's very first charity polish. This is called Fight and it is for the Pediatric Cancer Awareness Charity Collab Facebook group, where $3 from every bottle purchased is going to be donated to the Seattle's Children's Hospital. So I will have a link for that down below if you do want to read more about it. This one is described as a black and teal packed with green shimmers that shift to blue in extreme angles, and it is just so beautiful. As you saw on the first coat, this one had insane coverage, not to the point where I would call it a one coater exactly. I feel like I had some light spots near the tip or sides of my nail, but you could really see that beautiful teal kind of base color coming through a lot easier on one coat. Two coats makes it fully opaque and obviously deepens up the base a lot, and then here in more indirect lighting you could see that shift to that teal shimmer. It is just so stunning. Now getting into the actual Italy collection, the first polish we have here is Chinotto, and this one is described as a warm, dark brown jelly. I definitely think that's a very accurate description for this shade because hopefully you can see that there is just a strong red-leaning undertone to this polish, so it's not just a true brown, and I think it is just so stunning. This one is in a more true jelly formula, so you can see on that first coat just how sheer it was. It definitely had a nice formula that was very easy to work with. It self-leveled pretty nicely. I think you can see some lighter spots near my cuticle area, but I think that might be just because I did a few more passes. So if you're careful with your application, I think you might be able to get away with 2 coats of this one, but I personally think it looked a lot better on 3 coats. It just has such a rich color, and because it's so dark, it obscures your nail line a little bit more while still having that squishy jelly finish. Next we have Delicacy in Sardinia, and this one is described as a burnt orange cream, and it really is like the perfect burnt orange. It is just so stunning, so warm, and this one was apparently inspired by the sauces used in pasta dishes. I think it's a perfect color for the upcoming fall season. The only thing I would say is that I wouldn't call this exactly a cream finish. To me, this leans a little bit more on the crelly side, as you saw on the first coat with how much nail line there was, but it does build up really beautifully in 2 coats. There might be a hint of nail line if you're looking close enough, but I really don't think you need a third for this. The next polish we have is Terracotta Ruins, and this one is described as a warm maple brown cream. So I feel like on me you can definitely see it leans a bit orange. It's like one of those shades of brown that is very much on the orange side. I don't know if those are considered like Western or saddle browns or something, but whenever I see colors like this I just immediately associate it with that. So it's not a true like terracotta pot sort of color, but kind of close. This one had another fantastic formula where I would say it's a little bit creamier than the last shade, and it was perfectly opaque in just 2 coats. Next we have Rooftops in Bologna, and this one is described as a rose tan cream. No surprise, I absolutely love this shade. I mean, I really have loved all the polishes that I've swatched so far, where I would say they are my top favorites, but especially this one. I'm just always a sucker for a really flattering, neutral kind of shade, and this one just has this really beautiful, warm undertone to it that I think just makes it so flattering. This one also had another flawless formula that was opaque in 2 coats. Next up we have Orzata, and this one is a parchment paper off-white cream, and I can see that, but for me I immediately think of like these older vintage kind of appliances. The actual inspiration though is a popular syrup used in Italian sodas and coffees made from almonds, sugar, rose, and orange flower, so that definitely makes me appreciate it in a new light, but either way, I'm just not the biggest fan of this color. It certainly works well for the collection, but I feel like it's just not super flattering on me. This one did have another fantastic formula though, where I found it opaque enough for me on 2 coats. So attention Prugly lovers, this next polish is for you. This one is called Pistachio Buttah, and it's described as an olive green cream, which first I would say that this is a little bit more on the crelly side, maybe most similar to Delicacy in Sardinia, where on the first coat there's some nail line. I think it's a lot more obvious with this shade, but on 2 coats it does build up to be pretty much full coverage. Like if you look close enough you can see some nail line, but personally I wouldn't really do a 3rd coat for this shade. No surprise, I'm not the biggest fan of this color, but I do think it does work so well with the collection. Next we have Calabrian Pepper, and this one is described as a chili pepper red cream. So it is just basically your super fiery red hot cream polish. I guess except I wouldn't call it a cream. This one to me leans a little bit more on the crelly side again, where even though it does have incredible coverage, as you can see on the first coat alone, it just is a bit sheer where you are gonna see some nail line, and I think that you still see a decent amount of nail line on the 2nd coat. Granted, my nails are a little bit longer, so it does look more obvious. Maybe if your nails are shorter, you can easily get away with 2 coats. But yeah, I just wanted to throw on a 3rd coat just to show you how much more it builds up, where it's not fully opaque, but almost there. Formula aside though, the color is stunning. And rounding out the collection, we have Grotto, and this one is described as a Persian blue cream. This one is another absolute beauty. It is just so bright. I don't know if I would consider this like a cerulean shade, but it sounds right to me. And not to sound like a broken record, but this one, just like the others in the collection, had a really flawless formula where it provided really great coverage on the first coat, just a little bit sheer in some spots, but perfectly opaque in just 2. Again, I absolutely adore this shade. I think it is just so vibrant, but still works for fall. So I accidentally deleted my clips of these Skittles in natural lighting, but I still have the photos. So here I'm wearing 2 coats of each. You can see that the most sheer one is Chinotto, which is on my pinky finger on my left hand. So again, for that one, if you want a more full coverage look, I would recommend doing 3 coats, but the rest of them look amazing. I really love this lineup. Now getting into comparisons, we're starting with the charity polish called Fight, and it immediately reminded me of Mooncat's Drown My Demons from the Inner Apocalypse collection. That one is a magnetic, but on paper they are pretty much described the same way. And I also wanted to show it next to Cirque's Mood Ring, which is another magnetic polish, but they again have very similar qualities where they all have these really dark teal bases and green to teal shifting shimmers. I think in Cirque's though, it looks the most yellow. So I would say that Fight looks the most similar to Drown My Demons, but Fight has a bit more of that duochrome kind of shift. I'm wearing 2 coats of each here, and Drown My Demons is a little bit more sheer, like almost on the jelly side, so you can see more of that teal base. Fight is definitely a lot darker and more opaque, but I think I like that one the most. Then for Chinotto, I wanted to show this next to Mooncat's Kafkaesque, which I always thought was considered like a neutral brown, but I feel like it does pull a little bit yellow leaning maybe. Either way, you can just see how red leaning Chinotto is, so I thought something closer might be Cirque's Mxcn Cola Jelly from the recent Jarritos collection. It's the only other kind of red leaning brown jelly that I have, so I figured it would be best to show them, but as you can see, even from the bottle shots alone, they are not exact dupes, so I am going to be showing these in 1, 2, and 3 coats just so you can see how they build up. And yeah, while they might have some kind of similarities, Chinotto is basically like a brown with red leaning undertones, and Mxcn Cola Jelly is a red with brown leaning undertones. On 3 coats though, you definitely get a lot more coverage with Chinotto. Then for Delicacy in Sardinia, I wanted to show this next to Cracks My Blood Aches, which I think was from the Valentine's Day collection earlier this year. It's kind of like another rusty orange, but in more of a jelly formula. And speaking of rust, I thought I could also show this next to Cirque's Rust Jelly. So even though that one is a true jelly finish, I would say that Rust Jelly is actually more of a closer color comparison to Delicacy in Sardinia. Maybe it's like a little bit deeper or something. It's hard to tell because obviously it's more sheer being a jelly, but it looks really close. Then I have a few quick bottle comparisons to some Olive Ave shades. The first shade that I thought would be kind of similar was Olive Ave's Patterson, but as you can see, this is a lot more vibrant. It's not as muted or maybe as orange as Delicacy in Sardinia, so then I thought to go for a more muted orangey kind of shade. I could show this next to Olive Ave's Copper, but as you can see, that's a little too muted. And then I remembered that I had Zoya's Jackie from their Summer Sunset palette or something a few years ago, and I thought that these were going to be exact dupes. They look pretty similar in the bottle. Jackie's just a little bit more red, but on the nail they look really, really different, where Jackie is also a lot deeper. So I don't have a dupe for this, but I think there's one from OPI. Then for Terracotta Ruins, I wanted to show this next to Holo Taco's Ginger Snapped from the Cookies and Crumbs bundle earlier this year. I don't know why I thought these were going to be a lot more similar, but totally off. If anything, I think the closer shade would be Holo Taco's Stay Grounded from last year's fall bundle, but that one's a little too yellow leaning, so these are also definitely not dupes. And then I remembered I had Essie's Midnight Delight, which I think was from a winter holiday kind of collection a few years ago. And pulling this one out, I was like, oh my god, yes, I found a dupe for it. No, I was wrong. I mean, you can't blame me. They look so similar in the bottle, but on the nail, they are so different. Then for Rooftops in Bologna, I wanted to show this next to Stevie-O from the somewhat recent Artificial Flavors collection. That one is obviously a lot lighter. I think the closest color-wise that Cracked has released is Cinnamon Sugar Crumb. It kind of has that similar rosy tan kind of color where it's like a neutral with a bit of warmth, but obviously very different finishes. They would pair so nicely together though, but for an actual closer dupe potential, I thought that China Glaze's The Snuggle is Real would be really, really close to it. Again, I feel like they look so similar in the bottle. China Glaze was a little bit deeper, but it's a lot more obvious on the nail that not only is it deeper, I would say it's also a bit warmer too. So yeah, no dupes. Then for Orzata, I wanted to show this next to Lion's Tooth because it's the other kind of off-white shade that maybe leans a little bit yellow, but not nearly as yellow as Orzata, so definitely not dupes. Then for Pistachio Buttah, I feel like the closest shade that I had to this was Holo Taco's Not Pressed from last year's Down to Earth bundle. They are pretty similar, but not dupes at all. I would say that Holo Taco's is definitely more of like a true olive shade. Even though Pistachio Buttah is described as an olive, I feel like it just leans very, very yellow, as you can see here. And again, that one is a bit more sheer. Then for Calabrian Pepper, I wanted to quickly show this next to Cherry Sugar Water from the Artificial Flavors collection. That one's obviously more of like a shimmer formula, but it's a little bit more of an orangey red too. So I thought for more blue-toned reds, I can show this next to Essie's Not Ready for Bed, which I feel like is a classic red shade, and obviously also have to show this next to OPI's Big Apple Red. Mine is in the Infinite Shine formula, which I'm not exactly sure if it's different at all from the regular one, but seeing these three side by side, I would say that Calabrian Pepper is the most similar to Essie's Not Ready for Bed, where they look pretty much like dupes. The biggest difference is that Calabrian Pepper is just a bit more sheer. You can see more nail line near the tip of my nail, but OPI's Big Apple Red is almost a little bit more like pink leaning maybe. And lastly for Grotto, I first wanted to show this next to Drizzle, which came out in the spring collection earlier this year, but as you can see, that one is a lot deeper and almost a little bit more muted too, so definitely not a dupe.
and here it is next to OPI's Ring in the Blue Year, which I would say is like a very typical cobalt blue maybe. I feel like this is very in line with like Tile Art to Warm Your Heart, like those kind of shades. So, you know, just for reference, Grotto is a bit lighter than that. I thought it would be the closest to Olive Ave Roo, which was from a summer collection a few years ago, and again, these look pretty similar in the bottle, but on the nail they just do not compare. You can see that Olive Ave Roo is kind of like the same color, but it's a few shades deeper, so yeah, no dupes.
So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons for Cracked Polishes Italy collection. As always, I would love to know your thoughts on this release because I am so excited for it. I know I've been talking the past couple of videos and weeks that I am not ready for fall. It's too early. But once I saw these colors, I was like, oh my gosh, they are so beautiful. I love how just rich and cozy they are. Like they're very earthy, but then they have just like the brighter pops of color. So I feel like as a collection, this is just one of my favorites from Cracked. It is just so stunning. And you guys know that I'm like a big fan of shimmer polishes, and I'm usually kind of on the fence about a lot of Cracked polishes like cream formulas or their jellies or crellies. So I genuinely am really impressed with all of them, and generally I am a fan of all of them. Maybe obviously with the exception of Pistachio Buttah, that is just not the right shade for me, but I still just love how it works like with this lineup. It just feels like it belongs, so I can still appreciate it for that, but it's still just one of those prugly shades that I just can't get around to. So if you're a fan of this collection as well, I will have my affiliate link and code in the description box if you want to pick it up while supporting me and my channel. As always, it means so much whenever you guys support me through that, so a big thank you if you do. But either way, I do hope that you like this video if you like the collection or like seeing my comparisons for them, and of course let me know any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!